Part two, so here we have Maye Musk's parents. We have her father and her mother. As you can see, her mother was a ballerina, and her father, like we just talked about, was the director of Technocracy Incorporated, as well as an amateur archaeologist and a chiropractor. But Technocracy Incorporated is what I want you guys to pay attention to for a moment. So Technocracy is a political movement, like a political ideology that gained popularity around the 1930s, specifically in the United States and in Canada. Technocracy basically proposed replacing partisan politicians and business folk with engineers and scientists who were believed to have a better technical experience of balancing an economy. This ideology was specifically curated and cultivated by an American named Howard Scott, who was basically like the father of technocracy and a very close associate of Maye Musk's father. These two very big figures in technocracy were both arrested in Canada for having involvement in what Canada deemed as an illegal organization. The reason why Canada deemed technocracy an illegal organization was because technocracy opposed anyone getting involved in the Second World Conflict. If you do choose to do a little more digging into technocracy just for your own understanding of what it was, what it is, take a look at the map that technocracy wanted their power hold to be over. Greenland, Canada, Panama Canal. And then I want you to compare that to what the incoming president has said about land that he would like to take over in his upcoming term. You know, we've heard Canada, Greenland, Panama Canal. Are we following along? Are you catching my drift?
He wrote that the United States of America feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity.
He has been referring to Canada as the 51st state in some of his social media posts, saying he thinks that would be a great idea. President-elect Trump started referring to Trudeau as Governor Trudeau of the great state of Canada.
In a flurry of social media posts on Christmas Day, Trump suggesting that the U.S. could take control of Canada, parts of Panama, and Greenland, leading to swift pushback from key allies.
While technocracy is no longer illegal, it has been heavily criticized by more modern-day political scientists. Its main criticisms have been the fact that technocracy creates unjust concentrations of power, and technocracy fully excludes citizens from policy making and influencing policy. But anyway, after Maye Musk's father, Joshua, was arrested a few years later is when Maye Musk's father would pick up and move his family to apartheid South Africa. Skipping ahead a little bit. So Maye Musk and her sister, they had grown up in South Africa. They began working as office assistants for their father at just 12 years old, and they would come in to work for their father every day after school. Maye Musk was fairly popular in high school, and she had also began modeling, which she was finding a lot of success in, and she was also entering beauty pageants and beauty competitions. In 1969, Maye was a finalist for a beauty competition, the Miss South Africa beauty competition, because, you know, when we think of a South African queen, this is exactly what we think of, this ice queen, absolutely. A year after Maye placed in that South African beauty pageant, she would go on to marry a man who she met in high school, who was at the time in school for engineering, a man named Errol Musk. Maye Musk and Errol Musk would be married from 1970 for almost a decade, when they would ultimately divorce in 1979. Maye and Errol's marriage would produce 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, the oldest being Elon, followed by Kimball, and finally their little girl, Tosca Musk. During Maye and Errol's marriage, not only was Errol working as a very successful engineer, he was also involved in politics during the active apartheid in South Africa. Errol initially ran and was elected to be a part of the Progressive Federal Party, a party that sought to end the apartheid, or at least begin to dismantle the apartheid. But within a few years of him working within that Progressive Party, he decided that he changed his mind and actually agreed with the opposing political party that sought to uphold many aspects of the apartheid, if not the apartheid in full. Eerily similar to how we saw his son, Elon Musk, initially show a lot of support for the Democratic Party, and within 2 years ultimately completely did a 180 and changed all of his ideologies and stances so that he could be a part of a party that would financially serve him better. And if you do not think that Errol Musk, a descendant of settlers, did not benefit from the apartheid in South Africa, you are deeply, deeply mistaken, and we will get into it more. At the time that May and Errol divorced, the Musks were some of the wealthiest people in Pretoria, South Africa. In fact, the home that Elon Musk and his siblings grew up in was the largest home in Pretoria, South Africa. Errol was so incredibly wealthy that he owned multiple massive homes. He owned multiple luxury vehicles. He owned a private plane. He owned a yacht. He was one of the wealthiest men that anyone could find. As you can see here are some of the photos of Elon Musk growing up in what he considered nothing. Because, you know, Elon Musk came from absolutely nothing, according to him. But the reason for the divorce happening was because May described Errol as a man who had a terrible temper, and he was physically violent. He would berate her verbally. He was just an awful, awful man. And at the time of their divorce, Errol decided to withhold as much as he possibly could from May. She was awarded custody of all 3 of their children. Errol was not happy about that and retaliated against her for it, suing her multiple times to try to get custody of their children, and eventually just pulling really dirty moves and bribing his children to come live with them because he could afford more than May could. About 2 years after their divorce was finalized, Errol Musk bribed his son Elon to come live with him and promised him he would give him a computer, which worked. 4 years later, Kimball Musk would join Elon and his father, all living under the same roof, and they would all live under the same roof until Kimball and Elon finished high school. And after Elon graduated high school in 1989, he would then move to Canada and was followed by his mother and sister 6 months later. Go to part 3.